Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another Daincast. This time we have another game from our friend Countess playing on her alt here. She's playing the red Protoss in the bottom left-hand corner of Eternal Empire LE. And her opponent, the Terran player in the blue in the top right-hand corner, known as MagicPT on Clan Drago, is apparently an off-racing GM. I'm not sure what his main race is. I'm going to assume that it's Protoss because a lot of Protoss players like to off-race as Terran and vice versa. The mechanics being a little bit similar, but not too sure. But in any case, this is a Grandmaster player playing on their off race, so nothing to be scoffed at. Definitely a scary player. In any case, they have that game sense, they have that game knowledge. They may not necessarily understand the matchups to the extent that they would on their main race, but still a very, very dangerous player nonetheless, especially when you think about just the raw mechanics that most Grandmaster players end up having, and Countess has to go up against that. So could be pretty scary. We'll have to see how Countess handles this game. Looks like she's scouting after her gateway here, and she's done a nice little wall in the corner here to make sure that she has the pylon here. Could potentially put a shield battery in her mineral line and be aggressive with her adept if she chooses to, but definitely a nice little anti-reaper wall here, stopping him from going through this particular angle, although I think there might be a gap here. But in any case, anything that you can do to hinder that Reaper's movement is going to be a positive thing. So a little bit of harassment coming out from Countess's probe here while she goes down to take her Nexus on exactly 20 supply. Some nice multitasking there. She keeps that probe alive while getting her Nexus down precisely on time. Very, very crisp timings from Countess thus far. And for his in Camp Terran over here, we've got the double gas opener with a fast factory and a supply depot here. So not going to be an economic play as such from MagicPT. Instead, going for this very aggressive one-base play. Is still making a Reaper and hasn't shown Countess exactly what he's doing. Countess has not seen the factory. So as far as Countess knows, this is a proxy, and so she's going to be very careful here, sending her probe all over the map, even having a second probe watching this watchtower to make sure that she sees absolutely everything that's happening. I think this probe is probably going to get cleaned up by this Reaper, except he doesn't bother checking the tower, so he just rallies it through. Might get lucky and catch this probe out in the middle of the map, so some unlucky for this Reaper. But actually, he doesn't notice and ends up bypassing the probe anyway, so the Reaper is going to go into Countess's base, and it's going to be a 1-1-1 build from the Terran player with no expansion. Meanwhile, Countess has gone for a Cybercore first, is getting a Stargate, which is a really nice tech choice against this 1-1-1. Can give you a lot of options to punish the move out of the Terran, so long as that you don't just die to the tank push. Really like the flexibility of the Stargate, but it can be a difficult one to pull off, especially as our Terran is starting with a Cyclone from the factory, so already some anti-air units coming out. However, Phoenix against Cyclone can actually be a pretty reasonable interaction for the Phoenix if you have that critical mass of Phoenixes to defeat them and overwhelm them. It's a very binary interaction. Either the Cyclones have way too many and they kill everything for free, or you have too many Phoenix and you kill all of the Cyclones for free. So it can be a very, very swingy interaction just based on the nature of those Cyclones and those Phoenixes. But there's going to be a little push out here from these Marines and this Reaper. Not really sure what he's planning on doing with this. Might just push with the Cyclone and the 3. But there's 2 shield batteries from Countess, so I really don't see this doing a whole lot of damage. She's even got a couple of Adepts here. And her first Phoenix, not actually an Oracle, is out. And this is going to be a pretty nice little bit of defense here from the Marines and the Cyclone. Although, if the Cyclone gets a good lock-on this Oracle, it could be lights out. But there are shield batteries. The Oracle is very fast and it has the high ground to escape to if it chooses to. The Reaper going into the main base is going to want to get some harassment there, but there's a battery on the way there, and the Reaper damage isn't all that high, so as long as Countess controls this well, this should be pretty easy for her. She does lift the Cyclone, and she's got the Adepts underneath it. The Reaper is just going to be able to shoot all day at these probes and not do any damage. He does have 2 kills, but it isn't going to be the biggest deal, especially when these Adepts are whittling down the Cyclone. There are 2 Phoenix now for Countess. I think, has the Oracle gone down? No, Countess has kept the Oracle alive as well, but now the tanks and Marines are being added to this push. Only now is MagicPT taking his natural expansion. He's got units all over the map. A Liberator going into the natural expansion of Countess. She doesn't have anything in position to deal with this, but because she's on Phoenix, this should be a very easy cleanup, especially with the scouting probe spotting it. I mean, the Reaper is still here, but because there's a shield battery in both positions, Countess should be absolutely fine. As soon as she spots this is going to be an easy cleanup. She pulls the probes away, doesn't even lose 1 probe. Okay, does lose 1 probe. Just a miss rally from the main there. there, but the Liberator is going to go down without much of an issue whatsoever. So a very, very one-sided game so far. Countess absolutely build order countering this Terran player with the shield batteries and the Stargate units, not allowing this Terran to do much of anything with this push. It was a little bit of a fragmented push in 3 different places. Not really sure what the plan was there. I think he was hoping to catch Countess off guard, but being as it's a one-basing Terran, you're going to build shield batteries, you're going to build defenses, and most importantly for Countess, you're going to build Phoenix, which counter just about everything except for a mass of Marines. And that's the one thing that this build does not get. It does not have a reactor pumping out Marines, is instead going for a factory potentially producing Hellions or Widow Mines. I'm not really sure what the plan there is. Probably Widow Mines, given that there are Phoenix out, but only a single Cyclone for anti-air here and a couple of Marines, so it's going to be a little bit dangerous for him to even defend this natural against Countess's harassment. So if she gets that critical mass of Phoenix and goes in, this could be pretty dangerous. There is a little squad of Marines here. Let's see how many Marines here. 6 Marines, just kind of maybe 7 Marines floating around. But again, with this many Phoenix, as long as they catch them out of position, it shouldn't be much of a problem at all. A Marine actually going down on the watchtower, and every Marine here is crucial for MagicPT's defense. He wants to be able to zone these Phoenix out before he takes much damage, especially because he's fairly behind in the economy game. He's only got 39 workers to the 44 of Countess. Countess taking a 3rd base of her own as well. This Cyclone being caught out of position here with no Marine support gets picked off for free, and Countess will get another few SCVs for her troubles. She's going to pop in here and waste all the energy. Well, not waste, but use all the energy. Finally, a turret going down for MagicPT, but the damage is already being done here, and these Phoenix are getting pretty much free reign of the Terran's base, getting absolute perfect scouting information. So a little counterattack of Hellions is going into the 3rd base of Countess, but she's got nothing there, and she does have a fair amount of units in her natural expansion. As long as she realizes this should be absolutely fine. She even pulls the Phoenix back, so she's going to be able to chase these away, and I really don't see these Hellions doing much of any damage. And as long as she keeps an eye on where these are, she should be able to intercept them with her Phoenix. She even has an observer here to spot for the Widow Mines, and now these Phoenix are catching up with these Hellions, but looks like she's going to back off anyway and just play very defensively here, realizing she's got the advantage. She doesn't need to overcommit to chasing things through the map, especially being as there could be some Widow Mines hiding somewhere. I think she's just being a little bit cautious. MagicPT taking his 3rd base now, so actually keeping a decent amount of economy going, even though we started on a very aggressive 1 base, transitioning now into a mech-based build. So these 7 Marines are probably the only Marines we're going to see, and this is a very vulnerable position. He does have the double upgrades going, and so he should be able to add Thors or more Cyclones if he chooses. Will remain to be seen. Since he's going for double upgrades, I suspect it's not going to be battle mech. I think it will be mostly tanks and Thors and Hellions, but you never really know, and especially given that there are so many Phoenixes out there, it might be in his best interest to go for more anti-air and not so many tanks, but you kind of need that mix of units in order to engage the Protoss army in any case. Otherwise, Protoss can just flood you with gateway units and absolutely annihilate you, so it's a delicate situation. I think being behind and going mech is a lot more difficult than being ahead and going mech. I think being ahead is when you can go mech. Being behind against the Protoss, if they just take over the entire map, they can build whatever composition they want and pretty much just move your mech army. You really need to be bullying them into submission, but Countess is nowhere near in submission. She's got upgrades of her own. She's got a nice little mix of army here. She's adding gateways. She's got her 3rd base mining, and she's got lots of tech. She's got Templars. She's got Robo. She's got absolutely everything that she really wants at this stage. I guess she doesn't really have the forges, but forges not being the most important. She does add a 2nd robotics, so she's going to be able to pump out those immortals 2 at a time if she chooses, which are good against everything Terran has on the ground, except maybe Cyclones, but if the Immortals connect with the Cyclones, it's actually really terrible for them. So this Oracle going around trying to get a revelation on the bulk of Terran's army, wants to make sure that she's keeping track at all times, doesn't even take any hull damage from these Marines. Nice little revelate, gets a few tanks and Marines, so she's going to know, and she knows exactly where these rocks are at all times. These are revelated. These are not going anywhere anytime soon. unless they get destroyed, of course, but those rocks are very, very strong. It's unlikely they're going to go down anytime soon. So we've got charge lots, we've got immortals, we've got a handful of blink stalkers, but importantly, Countess has not overcommitted to the Phoenix or the Stalkers or the Adepts. These are the 3 units in her army that I think she probably doesn't really want to have more of. She wants Charge Lot Immortal for the most part because the Stalkers pretty much just get melted. The Adepts don't scale very well, and the Phoenix get, I mean, unless you have a huge number of them, they're just going to get countered by, you know, the anti-air that's there. They're just going to melt like paper. So not the best units to be having, and Countess knows that. She's tailoring her composition to make sure that she is going to be strong against whatever Terran is producing. 4th and 5th base is coming down from MagicPT, so a very aggressively economic game from him. I can say he's more than caught up in economy. He's got great upgrades on the way, so actually not looking like too bad of a position, and I would like to see Countess add some forges of her own because, again, even though upgrades aren't the most important thing against mech, you at least want your attack upgrades. You want to be able to chew through that composition as quickly as possible. You don't want to have to drag the fight out any longer, and if the Terran does have the upgrades and you don't, it can be a little bit scary. Especially with these starports being added with the tech lab. So it might be a battlecruiser switch or potentially a Banshee switch at this stage, which could be pretty scary, to be honest. Speed Banshees, there's no speed observers from Countess. But given that Countess is now going for carriers, I guess she's not that worried about it. She's getting, finally her upgrades are going to be the air upgrades, air attack upgrades. So those carriers will scale nice and strongly against it. Nice little warping of Stalkers here, block most of the Hellions from getting through, but with their blue flame, oh, they don't have blue flame actually. But even then, even with just a few of them, they do a pretty good amount of damage there. So 10 workers being killed in total in this game for MagicPT, but with those Phoenix and with that warp in, gets cleaned up without too much of a hassle. And now the carrier transition is still safe. It's still hidden for Countess for the most part. So MagicPT not going to know about these carriers, maybe until it's too late. It's pretty difficult. She's making 3 carriers at a time. The thing I worry about here is the battle cruisers are being made. There is a battle cruiser transition, and battle cruisers en masse are going to beat those carriers, especially if they have the better upgrades. And since MagicPT is ahead in upgrades, the carriers are going to do pretty much next to nothing against them if they have superior upgrades on the battlecruisers. And the battlecruisers also scaling very well with those upgrades could potentially just melt those carriers with their Yamato cannons and their plus attack upgrades and teleport away, getting value every single time. So definitely a scary situation to be in if you're going carriers with late upgrades into the battle cruisers, but it's better than going for stalkers without upgrades. It's better than going for, you know, just a ground-based army. So you got to kind of just play around your static defenses, maybe build some shield batteries to keep your units safe, and maybe get some storms, maybe get some Tempest added to it. Not really sure exactly what the perfect counter is going to be, but you know who might know is Countess. She's played this kind of situation lots. She loves to macro. She loves to play the late game against Terrans, and she is no stranger to this kind of situation. So she's going to be thinking about what the perfect composition is going to be. The Great Wall of Countess on the right-hand side here. No Hellions are going to be getting through, even a couple of cannons. Kind of looks like you're playing against the Zerg, to be honest. A really, really nice broad wall here to stop anything from coming in, and Countess herself is moving out onto the map. Looks like she's ready to get aggressive here. She wants to trade out some of these gateway units and start adding more and more carriers, so she definitely wants to keep these carriers alive while sacrificing the gateway units so that she can build a stronger composition overall, as does MagicPT. He wants to get rid of these Hellions, he wants to get rid of these Marines, so that he can trade into something that has a little bit more punch. And actually, there's only 2 battlecruisers here to the, how many? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 carriers from Countess. So I take back what I said about the interaction there. Yes, the upgrades favor the Terran player, but if there are 6 or 7 carriers to only 2 battlecruisers, the battlecruisers kind of become a non-issue. The Thor here is going to be a little bit dangerous with his anti-aircraft gun, but there's so many immortals here. As long as they get a connection on this, it shouldn't be too bad at all. The carrier is able to just sit in their nice little ivory tower here and kill everything, all of the SCVs, everything, without really taking too much of a damage. Unfortunately, these Phoenix getting sent in, I think Countess just wanted to trade those away, realizing they're pretty much useless at this stage. She's got nearly max supply. She's got lots of bank. She's ready to start trading these units away. She's ready to start keeping this Terran on a lower economy if she can. So the Zealots are going to go in, maybe get a little bit of damage done, but importantly, keeping the Immortals, keeping those carriers alive. So Countess has pretty successfully traded out her low-tier units and retained her high tier units. She needs to be careful about these Widow Mines, doesn't want to let those burrow underneath everything. The Widow Mine's going to be a little bit annoying for these interceptors, actually, killing quite a few of them, and these battle cruisers might be overextending just a little bit here. They're not going in with Viking support, and Countess realizes that this is pretty dangerous, so she's just going to recall. A recall actually dodging the Yamato cannon, or does that dodge, or does it go off anyway? I think it might have just gone off anyway, so quite a few of these carriers getting very low, and the recall missing on this last few carriers is going to mean that it's going to take a lot of damage from these battle cruisers, one of them even going down, but she might be able to regroup with the rest of her army here and save it. Looks like the battle cruisers realize this is a bit of an overextension, so they're going to go back to the fourth base of the Terran player. Both players very passive now, realizing that the game is entering the late stage here, and MagicPT really needs to stabilize and get a few more bases going. He's making lots of planetary fortresses, lots of orbital commands, and he's got a decent amount of factories, but honestly, he doesn't really have the reinforcement capability that he would want. I think as a result of Countess keeping him on only 4 bases, he doesn't have the production, he doesn't have the Oprah money that he'd like to have. Only 500 gas in the bank. Meanwhile, Countess is banking 2,500 gas. She's merely maxed, well, she's basically effectively maxed, adding many Tempests, which are going to be very strong against those battle cruisers. Might even be able to 1 or 2 shot them. Marines getting traded out for basically nothing. Not really a consequential fight here, but now MagicPT has the spare supply here, but I don't really fancy his chances. He's got a bunch of tanks as his army supply and Thors, which aren't going to be the greatest thing against the Immortal Carrier composition. I think he wants to be on basically pure battlecruiser, but he doesn't have the money for it. So yeah, even though battlecruiser has that advantage, when there's this much Sky Toss against this much Sky Terran, it's just not going to be the greatest trade. So looks like MagicPT is going to do a little bit of a flank here with these cannons, going to siege up. Not every day you see an attack of 3 siege tanks interfacing with a cannon and a wall like this, but this is nonetheless how it's going to play out. And Countess has an absolutely overwhelming amount of Sky Toss here. The Thor's desperately trying to clean up the interceptor count, but now that these Tempests are joining, they're able to pick away the units without really much of a say of the Terran whatsoever. He wants to have that critical battlecruiser count so that he can run in, Yamato everything, and teleport away to heal, but he just doesn't have the economy to support it. He doesn't have that composition that he would like. Still, even though he traded out a few of those tanks there, I mean, look at this. Countess has the money to spare. She's just warping in. How many DTs is that? It looks like 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15 DTs, probably with Blink. Yeah, they got Blink on the way. Not quite finished yet, but they're just going to walk in here, and actually, quite a few of these could go down if they get caught up by these Widow Mines. There's lots of turrets here. She's going to just delete this planetary fortress. Quite a few of them going down, but again, anything that Countess wants to trade here is pretty reasonable because she's got so much money she can afford it. Meanwhile, she's attacking at the 4th base of our Terran player with the mothership. Terran needing now to use scans just to engage with this army. It's going to have to use scans every single time. So it's going to be very awkward, especially when he's got DTs on the other side of the map. So Countess's anti-detection is going to stretch him a little bit thin here. Quite a few battlecruisers here, but again, quite a few of them are low, and they just get deleted by these Tempests without getting their Yamato cannons going off. The Widow Mines frantically with their drilling claws trying to burrow underneath, but Countess kites away, and she's whittling down this army bit by bit. Countess still having a pretty decent army here, but actually, I think MagicPT might have pushed her back successfully, especially with these Vikings. They're able to push her back quite a bit. She needs to retreat to the safety of these cannons, and she does have the bank to remax, but now she's gone all the way dry on gas. So actually a pretty scary situation. I think those DTs might have been a little bit of a problem, but since there's still a few of them that are alive, this is actually going to be really annoying for him to deal with. And a few more battlecruisers getting picked off by these Tempests, so really nice, and a massive Zealot warp in, and there's no more Hellions to deal with these Zealots. There are Widow Mines, but if Countess can successfully bait these out, if she can whittle them down, the Zealots are actually going to be pretty reasonable units in this situation to deal with these tanks, to deal with the turrets, especially because they only cost minerals, and Countess has minerals for days. She's not too worried about that. And now her bank is starting to grow. She's stabilizing on 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 bases, and she's managing to do a lot of pressure to the production of the Terran player. And he's even building a planetary fortress in his main base here, wanting to make sure that he keeps this safe, realizing that that's a space that Countess is going to attack. He's relanded another command center here, using a lot of resources, building defenses at home. It's going to weaken his army, though. He's still on an even army supply, despite those great trades. And now Countess is maxed, and Corvus and MagicPT isn't, and he doesn't have the gas to remax properly. All he can really make is Hellions here, and Hellions obviously not being the most useful thing in this stage of the game. I mean, Countess, yes, is on a lot of Zealots, and Hellions can be decent against those, but with this Skytoss army, MagicPT needs to put something together to deal with the Skytoss army. And what's his answer going to be? He's got a handful of Vikings, he's got lots of Thors, and he's got one battlecruiser. I mean, just one battlecruiser. And I don't think he's got the air upgrades at this stage. What does he have? He's got plus, I don't know, I guess he does. So he's got all of, well, he's got +2 vehicle. I guess he got air upgrades before he got his vehicle upgrades, which makes a lot of sense. It makes, it's probably more important at this stage of the game to get those battle cruisers on their +3 upgrades. But nonetheless, Countess is looking to be posturing here. She might even be able to take this base, plop down some shield batteries, and then pressure this side of the map with DTs. Meanwhile, a little bit of a roaming band of Hellions is trying to find opportunities for damage, but there's so many cannons for Countess. There's so much of a wall here. There's no way they're getting into this base. So really, really nicely secured bases from Countess, and these Hellions are probably just going to get melted. They're in the wrong neighborhood now, and now the fight is starting to kick off. Countess moving her army into the Terrans, and there's lots of turrets here. This isn't the ideal position for Countess to attack into, but it looks like she doesn't care. She wants to trade out some of these Zealots, and I think she knows she's got that critical mass. She's got the extra bank. She can afford to remax where the Terran can't. And yes, there's lots of Thors here, but because Countess has that economic advantage, she's able to do a lot of damage here against a decent trade, and maybe even a better trade than the Terran got here. Keeps most of her army alive, trades out most of those Zealots, remakes them in the end, but still, she's got so much bank, she's able to just remax here as quickly as she wants, and there's still not a lot of production happening for being added for MagicPT, and these Thors get really nice trades here, and Countess going down actually to 32 supplies. So MagicPT with a really nice micro, the really nice army composition, whittles Countess's army down to only the Tempest. But the problem here is that the Zealots are going to come in and clean up these Thors, which is definitely not what you want. Trading all of this gas for these Zealots. This warp in is absolutely crucial here. One Thor going down, 2 Thors going down, and maybe even a third. She's going to focus down the planetary. Not sure I agree with this decision, but another battlecruiser goes down, being sniped by these Tempests, and suddenly things aren't looking so bad for Countess. Yeah, she's got the smaller army for now, but she's got the bank. And look at MagicPT. He's got lots of minerals, but he doesn't have the gas. So he's going to try and saturate these gases at his extra expansions, but even though he has these bases, they're not mining, and more importantly, they're not safe. There's no defenses here. There's no planetary, nor can he afford the planetary. So Countess is going to be able to defend this, or attack this base rather, whenever she chooses. And there's really not much that MagicPT can do about it. So he's going to attempt to take these gases here. He needs to resaturate these gases as soon as he possibly can. Now Countess actually being mineral starved at this stage of the game. She's got more than enough gas, could potentially make Archons if she needs to in order to max out quickly. But now Countess's army is looking much scarier, so that bank coming in handy here. She's now at 110 army supply to the 75 of MagicPT, and this is where things get really scary. He's only got 4 or 5 factories and 2 starports. That's all he's got to remax. Meanwhile, Countess has, I mean, she's got, well, lots of gateways, so she can reinforce with that. She's got 3 Stargates, and she's got 2 Robos. So actually, I would like to see even more Stargates from Countess at this stage so that she can remax even faster. But it looks like it's going to be fast enough. She's up to 130 army supply. She is going to make those Archons to spend that gas. Again, not the most effective units against what Terran has, but at this stage of the game, you just want to have a big army. You just want to remax. You just want to spend that gas. So she's going to make many, many Archons and potentially hit this base. If she realizes that this is happening, she might be able to punish this one as well, but there's not any scouting on this side of the map for Countess, so she's going to focus her efforts over here, and this is finally potentially going to put MagicPT in a great position in this late game scenario here. But I don't think this base is going to survive. It gets absolutely deleted by this Archon Zealot Tempest army, and as soon as Countess realizes it, she might be able to go and punish this side as well. This is a crucial base for MagicPT, and tragically, he hasn't saturated his gases here yet fully. He's only got 1 worker on each gas, and he needs every bit of gas he can get. He needs to realize this. This is a major mechanical mistake from him at this stage. He finally does realize it. He finally does saturate, but this is the crucial base for him because this base is nearly mined out. Well, it's got 12 patches, but this base is going to mine out. This base's gas is all gone, so he's really only on a few geysers worth of gas at this stage. I would even like to see him retake this one, to be honest. There's a decent amount of gas remaining here. I'm not sure why he hasn't rebuilt this. This harassment from the DTs killing this base has been absolutely crucial in this game. So many Widow Mines are going to pop off here, but I don't know if this is going to be good enough for Countess because she's attacking up a ramp. I think she realizes this is a very dangerous position to be attacking into. Now that Terran is defending this position, there might be a little bit of a move out here from Terran. He might threaten one of Countess' bases finally, but this base doesn't matter. It's all mined out. This is the base that Countess really needs to keep going along with this one. So these gas is going to be saturated shortly for Countess. And now she's in a great position to both defend this base and attack from the same angle. So it's going to be a little bit awkward. And as long as she's got an observer with this, she should be able to kill these mines for free without taking too much of a damage. And looks like Countess is going to finally commit to this fight. The army supply favoring the Terran just a little bit, but it's too close to count. And there's so many DTs with Blink, and I don't think Terran has a turret here. Finally does scam, but everything's gone down by now. Half the army supply for MagicPT at this stage, and now there's only a few battlecruisers left and a single Thor with a planetary, but there's so much Protoss left over double the army supply for Countess, and this base is going to go down with a GG. Well played, and Countess takes the game.